Touno Hifumi learned various martial arts and disciplines from childhood. One day, he was forced to practice them in another world. Hifumi, who was suppressing his desire to kill people in modern Japan, decided to go live in a different world. A human being forged by martial arts to his very limits, with a distorted sense of ethics, and kills people without a second thought, has been called to a different world. Summoned Slaughterer. By Ido Masayoshi. Chapter 1, Flip the Switch. Touno Hifumi pointed the tip of his katana at a young girl's throat. Her slender neck trembling in fear, the girl made no sounds while staring tearfully at the katana pointed at her throat. The Japanese sword is a beautiful weapon. A blade crest which is said to be the scent of determination is not a simple curved surface and has a personality that carries a sharpness that sublimates the real nature of the blade. And now, it's a beautiful girl. Hifumi, glancing at the girl, thought. She had beautiful silvery gray hair, now slightly blue because of the tears falling from her clear greenish-blue pupils devoid of malice. Their eyes met. Her eyes clearly showing fear. Shaking, tears streaked down her pale cheeks. The girl does not seem like a villain. Hifumi felt doubt. Without breaking eye contact, Hifumi expanded his field of vision to encompass his surroundings. This was very difficult for ordinary people, however it was but a simple matter for Hifumi. Visiting the boundary of life and death many times during his insane training has led to this result. It was an old-fashioned, but luxurious, room of about 20 tatami, English note, for a rough estimation, imagine 20 or so twin-sized beds, that's how big the floor is. The walls were made of stone, and without windows, the only light came from the flickering torches on the walls. On the opposite side of the girl, a great double-door exit was visible. Only a foot away from the place where Hifumi and the girl stood, covered completely in armor, a knight holding a short spear for indoor use pointed it at Hifumi with an expression of anger and shouted, "Get away from the princess!" Hifumi did not react to the angry voice of the knight. Calmly analyzing his surroundings, Hifumi confirmed 6 people armed with the same equipment. He could not see behind him, but the sounds behind him gave away the number of people. At a glance, he saw that the armor was of a really tough metal. The helmets were also tight against their cheeks, having almost no weak points. He made an educated guess and thrust the point of his katana at a certain spot. "Well, I guess you do now." From their behavior, while feeling that there were no enemies of a comparable skill level, he recalled the circumstances that led to this situation. That day, Hifumi had finished his daily morning practice and was sitting in meditation in front of the dojo. Slowly inhaling the crisp and cold morning air, and feeling something within him stir. A slight quiver passed through him while suppressing that feeling. For Hifumi, this abnormal and severe practice of mind and matter was also a time for him to relax more than anything else. Once he reached 18, it seemed to have settled down, or rather, he's acting more his age and enjoying anime, manga and novels relaxedly. Other than martial talents, a very ordinary young man. Next to him lay his favorite Ido katana. Without excessive decoration, a black sword of simple make. Although inexpensive, he'd inherited it from his master and treated it with great respect, a peerless sword. Suddenly, he sensed presences behind him. However, no malice could be felt from them. Who's there? Hotilda, to be able to sense our presences. A man's hoarse voice responded to Hifumi's question. Turning around, Hifumi saw an old man, resembling the legendary Zeus from Greece's mythology, and a great warrior from the Warring States era with a bow naginata hanging from his waist. Hifumi involuntarily frowns. What a mismatched duo. And they're not human? Humans have a feeling of life, but that feeling of life cannot be felt from him. Me, I am a real human, this time, the great warrior answered. His behavior was befitting of an expert. Hifumi was already in a stance allowing him to draw the katana at his side instantly. No need to be so nervous. Although we have some bad news, we mean you no ill will. Bad news? Wait a minute, before explaining, I will introduce myself. The old man said while stroking his beard. Well, I am a god. You might say different gods belong to different religions. As a rule of thumb, this world's jurisdiction is under me, who is like a representative of God. And thus, those that control the military arts, the samurai, are gods. The man that introduced himself as the god of martial arts, folded his arms while laughing. I saw something in you. Warriors have become scarce in this era, also very few practice diligently like you. With your genius abilities, with great efforts, you have broken through the limits of humans and greatly pleased the god of martial arts. Well, I don't know why. Even looking at the past, I was brought up in an ordinary household, with a non-interference policy. An episode that provided input to martial arts doesn't exist. As the god of martial arts said, Hifumi's fighting power had already reached a cheat-like level. He acquired all the skills that the founder of the school left behind solely from experience. As such, it was possible to easily win against all the pupils of the dojo simultaneously in a straight-up fight. It wasn't even funny. Though having obtained the power and desire to fight, the two presences that called themselves God were unable to see through it. Although I say God, sensing a person's thoughts is not possible. We are not almighty, and as such, have some limitations. Normally, it is troublesome to manifest in this form. Our work, this world that we may call a stage, cannot be personally interfered with. We are forbidden from doing so. Shaking his head, the self-styled god's representative sighed. Ah, well, said the god of martial arts. There is no too much time, we should tell him the necessary conditions quickly, yes? Anyway, this bad news is that very soon, you will be sent to a different world. So, like the fantasy novels in your room, people from a different world have summoned you into their world. When Hifumi knitted his brows, the god of martial arts corrected him. That is not the case. Please do not misunderstand. Well then, why? Not believing that this person was a god, yet Hifumi sensed it was not a lie. Someone in that world has wished for it, forcibly connecting the two worlds by distortion. Moreover, the mark of summoning suits you well. Unless you cross over, the distortion will not fade, causing various effects on this current world. I see. Thought Hifumi. Being a bookworm who read all kinds of genres, such a situation seemed comparatively interesting to him. Simply put, these two self-styled gods had come to explain the situation, so as to clear any confusion in Hifumi's mind. In all fairness, should they really be called gods? Because of that, questions about the distortion can be freely asked. Since you're a man of my world, I wish to do a little something for you. That place is a so-called world of swords and magic. It is a dangerous world. You can temper your martial arts to your heart's content, without any reserve. I see. Hifumi shut his eyes and indulged in the idea for a while. Previously smoldering feelings in Hifumi were simulated. Well, our discussion had been understood. Hifumi, for the time being, decided to believe the story. Anyway, what do I do in this different world? What, just defeat the Demon King on the other side, being called the hero, what else? The old man answered Hifumi smilingly. Rather, we don't really care how you spend your time in that world. That world is forcibly kidnapping you, so to speak. You do not need to listen, even if you are asked for something there. The god of martial arts said angrily, with his mouth shaped like the kana character. The world that we manage is messed up, it doesn't feel right. Moreover, that world is much different from this world. There are brutal demons and dangerous magic, various species like elves and dwarves exist. To be thrown suddenly into such a world would be very troublesome too. We are explaining this to you beforehand so that you are not be perplexed. Also, you have the power to fight in that world. For example, you can use magic. Though Hifumi managed to get an image, nothing happened. No, 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 magic exists only in that world, as the image of power for a person. So, let me. The old man nonchalantly raised a hand, and the katana Hifumi was holding heated up a little. Apart from the god's power, almost nothing can break this katana. Sharpness has been boosted, it won't bend or break, and all traces of rust are removed. This is the only gift this powerless god can give you. And from me, the divine protection of the god of martial arts. Though you stand at the top in your dojo, and might take over sometime soon, ah well. Now, your martial arts can power up more effectively. It seems it will be useful in the other world, where it's considerably important. I see. On receiving the explanation, Hifumi, who had obtained the divine protection, suddenly got up and headed towards the straw post used for AI strikes. A single flash. Drawn from the waist, the katana cut through the straw post, not stopping there, also damaged the wall of the dojo. The wall was split open, a cut visible on the steel frame. This is bad. I only intended to cut the straw post, but even the part not touched by the blade is broken. Well, you'll get used to handling it. The effects of the summoning will begin soon enough. At the same time the god of martial arts mutters this, a geometrical formation appeared at Hifumi's feet. This is. It's here. Hifumi, in the future, it may be difficult, but please persevere. If you wish to live, you must grow. As the god of martial arts, I wish for your martial arts to improve in that world, but do not force yourself. A moving scene, isn't it? Unexpectedly, a light voice suppressing laughter was heard. A death god? I do not recall having called you. The god of martial arts said with a sour expression. It is not because of being called, said a thin man wearing a tailcoat, appearing behind Hifumi. Wearing a faint smile, the pale-faced, corpse-like thing spoke. I have been watching him for a while. This fragrance of death he gives off is not human. The death god said and laughed. Many people desire to kill, but this person is the first whose soul is wreathed in darkness. Hifumi only silently glanced at the death god, remaining expressionless. Listening to the death god's words, neither affirming nor denying. Do you crave for bloodletting? Now that you mention it, what is the source of your zeal for martial arts? Hifumi didn't answer the god of martial arts question. Even the god of that world does not have such a happy thing. In that world of magic and swords, you can show your power to your heart's content. If anything stands before you, you can cut it down with your sword. Excitedly, the death god appeared in front of Hifumi. Despite the poor ability, accept this gift from me. The death god grandly gestured towards Hifumi, a black mist permeated Hifumi's body. I gave you the darkness attribute that I excel at, and you will be able to use dark magic depending on your image there, and it is at a level that exceeds human knowledge. I will use it well. You seem to have received it willingly. Naturally, it will not work here, but you should try it out in that world." To Hifumi's words, the death god replied smilingly, winking at the other two gods. "I thank you." "Eh?" Before the death god realized, Hifumi's sword tore him into two pieces. The upper body fell onto the floor, making a much heavier noise than expected. The death god, his eyes filled with astonishment, opened his mouth soundlessly before collapsing and turning into sand. Huh, was the god really cut that easily? I don't know whether or not this person is a god. However, I don't like anyone trying to use me. Hifumi stared expressionlessly at the sword, which reflected nothing, not even the edge was nicked. "Thank you for this sword. I can use this to kill without reserve." As if a switch had flipped, Hifumi muttered with a ferocious smile. Chapter 2, The Kill. It was not yet 0 hour for the transfer. Previously it was God, now human beings will be killed. What? Astonished at Hifumi's sudden violence, the remaining two gods were frozen in shock. "Though it seems like an abduction, I am exceedingly happy about it," Hifumi said without meeting the two silent gods' gazes. For the very first time, a living person. Whether a god can be called a living being is debatable. I killed it. I feel very good. The desire to take a life increases as one walks the path of martial arts. The more one kills, the more their skill improves. A world of swords and magic? Demons exist. People that may deprive you of your life. One can say that a person's life has more value in Japan. If I have a reason, I will kill. There was no blood on the blade, but Hifumi shook the sword anyway. From where the magical formation was touching, his feet were slowly becoming transparent. Apparently this takes a while. But, do we allow this fellow to just go as he pleases? The beard-stroking god seems to have settled down, but the god of martial arts hadn't regained his cool. "Ah well, we have no way to do anything. Although he killed a god, the transfer has begun, we just can't do anything now." While the gods were conversing, Hifumi's waist had started to disappear. "Hey gods! What? We'll meet again. I will take many lives there, fill the world with fear. I will come back much stronger. First I will deal with the people that called me, forcibly ignoring my intentions. I dislike people who try to manipulate me." Hifumi felt a very large power whirl through him. The power to kill. Feeling better, he breathed out slowly. "I will change that world according to my morals. Though it may be the dream of a fool. I will ransack that world with my power, and find a way to get back. I'm sure I'll find something in that worthless world." What? Well then. Leaving behind a smile that brought a chill to even the gods' spines, Hifumi disappeared from this world. We may have unexpectedly sent off a terrible person. The moment when the transfer was completed, the unsheathed katana pointed at a girl in front of Hifumi. Was I summoned?" Hifumi snarled, eyeing the girl coldly. You bastard. What do you think you're doing?" With the girl clearly not understanding what had occurred, the knights suddenly yelled angrily. Contrasting to them, Hifumi was observing his surroundings icily. The 6 knights gradually enclosed Hifumi, nudging him with their spears. "Hiyu." The girl finally noticed the katana pointed at her. Her expression changed from perplexed to frightened. "You are rude. Do you know whom you're speaking to? Number, answer me. Did you summon me? He replied, carelessly disregarding the spear-wielding knight's angry words. Oh. Ah, speak slowly. If the blade slips carelessly, you will die. Yugu. Looking over the knights and the girl expectantly, Hifumi got no answers. If the knights step forward by only half a step, the sword will slip and the girl dies. Hiro-sama. It is I who have summoned you, it is not a mistake. Who are you, what do you want from me? I am the first princess of the Orsongrand Empire, Imeraria Tori Orsongrand. Attempting to meet eyes with Hifumi but failing, she started stuttering due to fear. Oh, our country has become impoverished due to the brutal fight against the demi-humans. So we reproduced this summoning magic according to the ancient texts. Since it is a secret art that only a person of royal blood can execute, since only those of the royal bloodline are gifted with a large amount of mana, I was ordered to summon Hiro-sama. I see, summoning a hero to fight against evil happens in the fantasy genre often. And thus. Ordered to? Then, who is the initiator of this ritual? That is. Princess Imeraria clearly saw the color of anger in Hifumi's eyes, and was worried about telling him. But Hifumi could guess it easily. It's the king, isn't it? Only someone above the rank of first princess can order you. Though it might be the queen too. If they are your parents, it makes sense that you are carrying out this duty. Ah. Imeraria opened her eyes wide and looked quite flustered. The man in front of her eyes was not some hero fighting for some sense of justice, not caring for authority or power, but an extremely dangerous person. And no, it's different. This. How old? Your age? Ah, 14 years old. Puzzled momentarily by the question, she answered in a hurry. Is that so? Hifumi moved his sword away, just a little. In truth, he holds to some standards, one of them being up to junior high school level, the parents should take responsibility for their children's actions. Besides, criminals do not have human rights and don't pay attention to religious fanatics, and educators are unsuitable for the laws and customs of Japan, because of which Hifumi had accumulated stress and impatience. Then, the ones that should be killed are your parents, huh? Question mark. At that instant, Hifumi turned and swung his katana. The surprise attack aimed at a gap in the neck of the knight's armor struck true, and the knight collapsed, unable to make a sound, blood gushing from his neck. Emitting bloodthirst so wildly, it's unpleasant, you know. Amateur. Instantly, the katana returned to Imeraria's throat. Exactly to the same place, as though it had not moved away at all. With merely one slash, the knights froze in shock, feeling weak at the knees. Within this castle, the ones attending the ritual were the elite of the elite practitioners in the country. However, none of them were able to even see the sword's path. Furthermore, they didn't even notice when the katana had left Imeraria's throat. Watching Hifumi's swordsmanship, the knights' shock increased. The swords and spears they use are heavily made and are used to cut using the weight and power. Apart from the thin clothes Imeraria was wearing for the ritual, they didn't think Hifumi's thin katana could damage their armor. For Hifumi, it was common sense to aim at the vital points of an opponent on the battlefield, but due to the difference in cultures, they were unable to understand. The dead knight's corpse proved that the ability that killed him was definitely that of a hero level. You bastard! An enraged knight roars angrily, unable to step forward. Comparatively, Hifumi was very calm. Come forward if you want to die. I have business with this woman. Hifumi calmly provoked them, lowering his katana. At that instant, The 5 remaining knights charged together. Diversion method, Hifumi muttered while turning his body to slide past a knight, using the knight's own momentum to move past him. Another knight's spear stabbed into the knight that replaced the lightly moving Hifumi's position. Go. Gaha, though most of the damage is resisted by the armor, the spear pierced through the joints, the other's neck was split by Hifumi's katana. The light left the eyes of knight whose movement was restrained by stabbing his colleague and he died. 2 people are instantly killed. To recover the situation, the remaining 3 knights took some distance. Weak. Hifumi spat in disgust. Knights of the castle? I thought you'd be able to resist for longer than this. Gugu. Had enough yet? You bastard, you are nothing. Their strength as knights was dominated by Hifumi, no longer able to protect the princess. Simultaneously piercing and stabbing, Hifumi passed by the 3 knights as though he was taking a light stroll. The first knight had a spear protruding from his throat, the second had his spine slashed and the third was killed by Hifumi roundhouse kicking a knife into him, burying it up to the hilt. Translator note: I dunno where the heck this knife came from, it's over. Hifumi declared disdainfully, turning the katana dripping with blood towards Princess Imeraria again. Imeraria, who had absolute confidence in the strength of the Imperial Knights, watched as the knights sank in a sea of blood in the blink of an eye. It was unbelievable. Oh. Now, shall I have you guide me to your parents? Hifumi unconcernedly said, sheathing his sword after killing everyone. Guided by the princess, he walked within the castle. Servants and knights stared at them from a distance, but none called out to them. Seeing the haggard princess and the young man, no one was able to understand the situation. The room in which Hifumi was summoned, containing the corpses of the knights, had been locked when they left, and no one knew what had transpired there. Servants are not allowed access, they only know that some important things are done within that room. A splendid building. Looks quite similar to images of castles of the West that I saw on the net before. Hifumi gathered information by looking around while moving. These servant-like fellows, are they wearing hemp clothes? Is the cultural level still that of the Middle Ages equivalent? Though Imeraria's clothes seem to be of fine make. While walking, Hifumi suddenly decided to try out the darkness magic attribute he received prior to the transfer. He predicted that the sense of incongruity within his body after the transfer might be mana. On letting an image flow to his mind and concentrating the mana, something like black mist formed over his left hand. So this is dark magic. Remembering a previously read novel, he solidified the image for the magic. In front of him floated a black circle about 20 centimeters in diameter. Hifumi tried to insert his sword in it. It seems possible to put it in. Putting his right hand behind his back, Hifumi concentrated on the image and gripped the sword from the dark interior. He could clearly feel the contours of the sword fit his hand. Retrieval is possible even if I can't see it. Really, this shouldn't be able to be done. While experimenting, Hifumi walked on noiselessly. Imeraria, timidly walking with heels clacking, was putting her whirling thoughts in order. Should I take him to the king? Or should I take him to some other place after all? Then what do I do after taking him elsewhere? When he knows he's been deceived, then what? Assuming I'll be killed, what then? In the end, someone in the castle can seize him, but eventually might reach father's place after struggling. Why do I have to do such a thing? Imeraria muttered inaudibly. Her quiet companion seems to have heard her. Such a reason, only you will have the answer. Eh? Imeraria turned around instinctively on hearing that. Whether you did something out of malice, or out of profit, whether someone was grateful for it or was wounded by it, None of that matters. The only fact is that there will be a consequence. Another thought rose up in his mind. All actions bounce back on oneself. In such a situation, the reason is insignificant, only actions matter. While Hifumi's words disturbed Princess Imararia, they had arrived at the entrance of the throne room already. The king, waiting impatiently for the hero's visit. Not knowing anything, a knight received them smilingly. "Princess, this man." "Yes, I will conduct introductions to father. Please open the door." On reaching here, Imararia had resolved on one thing. Her words to the knight, different from before, had calmed down. In the audience chamber, the king was sitting on a raised platform, with the queen and prince on his sides, with knights and civil officials on both sides of the chamber. Storing his katana in the dark hole, Hifumi casually followed Imararia into the chamber. 5 meters in front of the king, Imararia halted. Hifumi was standing behind her in a bad mood. Some people raised their eyebrows due to Hifumi not kneeling, but he didn't care. When Imararia bowed, the king opened his mouth. "Imararia, is this person a hero?" But it was not the princess that answered. "Nope, I am not a hero," Hifumi said while looking the king in the eye. "I may be rude. I'll speak plainly." An approximately 50-year-old man, seemingly a civil officer with a splendid mustache, shouted, completely ignoring Hifumi. This woman did the summoning, dragging out this pitiful victim from a different world by force. Pulled out from the dark hole, the katana shone with an uncanny light. "This crime, make up for it with your life." With a cold light in his eyes, Hifumi sneered. Chapter 3, Can't Repeat. After a short silence, the audience chamber was in utter chaos. "Why, within the presence of the king, is he carrying a sword? In the king's presence? What are the imperial guards doing? Quickly, arrest him." The civil servants edge back, the knights on standby move forward. Inside the castle there is basic equipment. Like the knights in the summoning room, all these knights have the same short spear. "Please wait," Imararia cried, standing in front of Hifumi with her diminutive body. "Hiro-sama too, please hear my story." "Go ahead, thank you very much." On her words not being disregarded, Imararia was relieved a little. However, thinking about the problem, she braced herself. "Wait, Imararia." Imararia looked up on hearing the king's voice. Though he was sitting on the throne in a relaxed manner, his countenance showed irritation. "First of all, speak with us. Hero, we are Wilburken Godenhilmar Songrand, the king of this country." Translator note: I took some liberties with names, but tried to stay as close as possible to the original. Also, the king is using a form of me that is typically used by royalty. Hence, the us. Hifumi did not look away from Imararia. "Hiro-sama? I said I would listen to what you had to say. Say it quickly." On seeing Hifumi's complete disregard for him, the king angrily struck the armrest of the throne. "Ignoring us? Even a hero is not permitted to ignore us. Guards, arrest this fellow. It's fine if he's injured a little." 4 members of the guard charged forward at the royal decree, all of them were cut down in a single breath. Without being flashy, a precise swing of the sword killed efficiently. Watching the elegance and cruelty, everyone in the audience hall held their breath. "Hiro-sama, what? Your name, please let us hear it." Hifumi. Thinking a little, Hifumi answered with only his given name. His family name of Touno he might as well throw away. Killing the god, crossing over worlds, killing people. Though there were no lingering attachments to his family, Hifumi had come alone. He may have wanted to persuade himself of that. Hearing his name, Imararia looked Hifumi in the eye and said, "Hifumi-sama, due to our selfish convenience, you were called to this world. I sincerely apologize to you. Truly, I am very sorry." The surrounding people murmured on seeing Imararia bowing deeply. A member of the royal family is bowing to a rude person. In this world, where status is fixed and hierarchical relationships are the norm, this is clearly the exception. This situation, it is my fault. To calm Hifumi-sama's anger, I will do anything I can. My life, you may end it right here if you wish. Imararia's blue-eyed gaze don't waver from Hifumi. Demonstrating resolution, she awaited his words quietly. However, the king raised his voice. "Foolish. How could such a thing happen? Isn't this person a hero?" "Imararia, explain." The king's voice shook with anger. Why should the princess lower her head? What did the knights taking part in the ritual do? Just what is going on? Explanation. From Imararia's mouth, the reality of the situation shocked people in the hall. Some knights have already been murdered by the man called to save the country. And most surprising, blaming the king with a crime. No, to say such a thing warrants punishment. Towards the king, a monarch, such a thing is unacceptable. At least, according to the people in this world. Hifumi, there is still time. Kneel to us and swear to serve this country. With your ability, you can obtain a high position. The rudeness here, and the crime, we will overlook it. Though people were killed, it was a terrible remark, but from the reactions of the civil officials, the king's influence seems to hold much weight. With these impossibly favorable terms, the king looked down on Hifumi from the platform full of confidence. However, to the abnormal man standing there, it was a bad move. Foolish. Hifumi spat and continued. Astonishing. A man of power who is also a complete fool. Do you not understand that your daughter is desperately trying to protect you? Do you not understand your position? You should be begging me. I and your daughter, who you want to use for this country. You tried to deprive a man of his future, for your own selfish interests. Hifumi-sama. Imararia's fears were realized, the situation was going terribly bad. However, it was too late. Several knights charged towards Hifumi, but were killed instantly. Hifumi had already reached the pinnacle of fighting one-handed. The civil servants unable to take in the violence back up against the walls, and some sit down in fear. Only the prince and the queen seem able to watch the situation without turning pale. Then how to say this? You cannot be returned to your former world, the way of repatriation is lost, only the ritual of summoning remains. On hearing the king's words, Hifumi looked at Imararia. She confirmed it by avoiding his gaze and looking down. Everything is our fault. Therefore, Imararia, if a parent obediently apologizes, consent to money. Of course, your wish of leaving will be heard. Becoming the likes of a subordinate is unreasonable. Money, huh? The princess herself does not have any assets. Because it is rare to buy anything with one's purse. Of course, the country pays for this. The criminal is a king. The king's responsibility is the country's responsibility. That is how it is. Hifumi did not really want a lot of money. He wanted enough for immediate funds in this world. However, he was unable to accept the king's attitude and wanted to see the reaction of the king and specified an amount of money. 30% of this country's treasury. I will receive a formal apology, of course. This nation's king who messed up, you will publicize this event so that it is common knowledge. That is. understanding wells in Imeraria. Her father cannot accept these conditions. Thought the amount of money mentioned is not a problem, but publicizing the king's blunder, with her father's character, will not be allowed because of the royal family's dignity. Something like this is reason enough for abdication. Hey! Are you stupid? I cannot accept such a reason. Take a better look at reality if you want to negotiate. The king scoffed on listening to Hifumi's conditions. At this later stage, he did not give up his superiority. Then, I will give you enough money to live easily for several years. You are somewhat talented, but a mad dog is not needed. On receiving the money, leave the castle immediately. In order to show dignity to the vassals who are somewhat settling down, the king talked as though he had the upper hand. The king's authority is higher than anyone else, they reassured themselves of that while exchanging glances. Until the end, he understands nothing. What a pathetic fellow. Hifumi muttered to himself, with a sigh mixed in. How many people were able to hear it? Though Imeraria heard him, before she understood, the next scene jumped into her eyes. Die. With silent footsteps, Hifumi draws near the king in an instant. With a sound like cutting grass, the king's head was cut off. Hey! The head tumbled down onto the queen's lap, who was sitting to the side. She fainted in fear. Similarly, the prince fainted too. How? Parents take responsibility for their child. In this case, the parents are the masterminds. Furthermore, the conditions were given, yet not met. His death was but natural. Cleaning his blade with a Keishi-1, said Hifumi, without a trace of malice in his expression. Regrettable. You always thought of your father first, but he was stupid. But I took responsibility. To Imeraria's incoherent muttering, Hifumi continued, you reflected. Did you follow what your father said after that? According to his own convenience, he tried to give reparations. So I killed him. The vassals were already lost for words. Feeling fear and confusion, no one moved. But one person, a younger knight, saw the princess burst into tears and ran towards Hifumi. Don't think you can get away with this. A man pulled out his sword and charged at Hifumi. Slow. Hifumi judged it unnecessary to pull out his katana, passed by the side of the knight with a quick movement, scooped his opponent's chin and threw him to the stone floor. During the audience, a carpet was spread only in the central passage. The young knight was unlucky. Fresh blood spread over the floor. Look! Told by Hifumi, Imeraria raised her head timidly. A hellish sight filled her view. Several corpses of knights, her mother and brother, fainted on the platform. And all this is the result of the action your father took. All because of believing in that fool. Hifumi looked at Imeraria. The difference is, you reflected a little. It was a really self-centered point of view, but no one said anything. In a manner of speaking, a person who's been hurt takes revenge on the mastermind. According to the kingdom's laws, killing a kidnapper and escaping are natural rights, though Hifumi didn't know that. Though criminals are privately put to death, it is a king that has been killed, the situation is too abnormal. Imeraria was sitting down trying to organize her thoughts. Though unable to precisely understand the person in front of her, she carefully watched the situation. Well now. Hifumi looked around, a man stepped forward. It is well-built man, around 50 years old. Because he stood near the throne, he might be a high-level person in this place. You are? This country's prime minister, Adelphi Orivinia. Hifumi stared expressionlessly at the man who was desperately trying to suppress his shaking knees. Don't be afraid. If you don't harm me, I will not harm you. Apart from that, take me to the treasury of this castle. Immediately. To Adele's doubtful expression, Hifumi declares lightly. Reparations have been met. Hifumi was led to the treasury by Adele. The soldiers on guard also entered, as asked by Adele. Entering the treasury, there were silver and gold coins were piled up. Half of them were stored in the dark hole. The promise was that of 30%. Adele looked at Hifumi in protest. The promise was already broken. Though a life was lost, but such a life is unworthy. Hifumi declared lightly. Looking at the airy treasury, Adele had given up on the national administration in the future, was walking unsteadily towards the exit with Hifumi following. Imararia, who was crying before in the throne room, appeared. Hifumi-sama, please wait. What? My business here is done. First of all, this apology. Hifumi looks at Imararia suspiciously. The other party is a man that killed her father a moment ago. Logically speaking, it is hardly a thing to be able to simply forgive. This time, I was foolish and unaware. Though it does not change what has already happened, without thinking about the repercussions, I did this. And now. Raising her head, Imararia's face was expressionless, like a cool-headed statesman. Our country or Sangren does not forgive you. I will support mother and my younger brother and make this country strong. And in time, when we are unreliant on others, we will take revenge. Fufu, unable to bear it, Hifumi burst out laughing. If you like, how about competing now? No, the present military power of our country will not be able to stand against you. This even I understand. It is my responsibility to set it up. After that, I will have my revenge. Is that so? Well then, I will look forward to that time. Thank you. Now please leave as soon as possible. The exit is there. Hifumi started walking in the indicated direction. Imararia raised a hand, stopping the knight approaching Hifumi from the back. She knew it was useless. Have the Third Knight Corps observe him until he leaves the country. Get me a detailed report. However, all attacks against him are prohibited. On leaving the country, the task goes to the Spy Corps. At once, Princess. Receiving Imararia's orders, the knight left. Father, please forgive the weak me who cannot beat the enemy. Soon, one day. While watching Hifumi's back disappearing into the town, tears thought to have withered stream down her cheeks. In such a way, the god killer, the man that killed a king, was released into the world.